Welcome back to the Behavior Code. I'm Maria.
And I'm Gabriel. Super pumped to be here today. We've been wanting to do this episode for like a long time.
We really have. So today's episode is called Learn This Early, and the premise is pretty simple. Some lessons, if you'd learned them 10, maybe 15 years earlier, would have completely changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, and it's not that people are dumb, right? It's just that nobody taught us this stuff. Nobody sat you down in high school and said, hey, here's how compounding works, or here's why the people you surround yourself with will literally shape who you become.
Right, exactly. It's just not on the curriculum. And I think the frustrating thing is the older you get, the more obvious it becomes. But by then, you've already made a bunch of decisions based on completely wrong assumptions.
Which is kind of wild when you think about it. Okay, so let's just jump in. I want to start with something that kind of sets the stage for the whole episode.
Yeah, let's do it. So the line that keeps coming back to me, and honestly, it's the reason we named this episode the way we did, is that the lessons that change your life are often learned 10 years too late,
Oof, yeah, that one hits.
right? And I want to give 3 quick examples to just kind of prime people's brains before we go deep on each topic: money, relationships, and self-respect. In that order.
Go for it.
Okay, so money. Most people I know, including honestly past me, spent their 20s just trying to not be broke. Like the goal was survival, pay rent, have a little left over, maybe save something.
Which, that's not nothing. That's a real thing people have to deal with.
Totally. But here's what nobody told us. The difference between investing at 22 versus investing at 32 is not a little difference. It's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars by retirement because of compounding, because time in the market is the actual asset.
And if you don't know that, you're just not playing the game. You don't even know the game exists.
Exactly. Okay, second one, relationships. I have a friend, brilliant, incredibly hardworking, built a great career, and she spent 8 years in a relationship that slowly just chipped away at her confidence. Every decision she made during those 8 years was filtered through this dynamic that wasn't healthy.
And the thing about that is, it's not just the relationship itself, right? It's every opportunity you pass on, every version of yourself you don't become while you're stuck in that.
Completely. And she figured it out eventually. But she says all the time, if someone had just told me earlier what a genuinely supportive relationship actually feels like versus what I thought love was supposed to look like, different story.
That's a really powerful one. And the third, self-respect.
Self-respect, which I think is the sneaky one because people think self-respect is like an attitude, a personality type. But it's actually a skill. It's a practiced behavior. It's knowing when to walk away, knowing what you'll accept and what you won't, holding your standards even when it's uncomfortable.
And most of us, I'll speak for myself here, I had no idea what my actual values were until I was close to 30. I was just reacting, going along with things, saying yes when I should have said no.
Yeah, and those 3, money, relationships, self-respect, are kind of the through line for the whole episode today. So keep those in the back of your mind.
All right, so let's get into the real stuff, identity. And I want to start by just asking, do you think most people actually know who they are? Genuinely?
Honestly, no. I think most people know who they were told to be, which is very different.
Say more about that.
So there's this concept, I love how psychologists talk about this, called inherited scripts. And the idea is that from the moment you're born, you're being handed a script. Your parents hand you one, school hands you one, your culture, your religion, your neighborhood, your friend group, all of them are handing you scripts about who you should be, what success looks like, what's acceptable, what's not.
And the problem is, most of us never actually read the script that we're handed. We just run it automatically.
Exactly. And some of those scripts are fine. Some of them are genuinely helpful. Like if your parents taught you to work hard, to be kind, to keep your commitments, great scripts, run those forever. But some of them are completely outdated or just flat out wrong.
Can you give an example, like a specific one?
Yeah, sure. So, a really common one is around money and class. A lot of people, especially people who grew up in lower income households, inherited this script that says money is dangerous, or rich people are bad, or wanting more is greedy. And that script gets handed down, right? And the kid grows up, and even if their circumstances change, they're still running that old software.
And it shows up in weird ways, like they feel guilty when they earn more, or they self sabotage right at the moment when they're about to level up, or they give money away compulsively because having it feels wrong.
Right. It's not irrational behavior, it's perfectly rational behavior given the script that's running. The problem is the script isn't serving them anymore.
I had this moment. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but I had this moment in my mid 20s when I realized I was chasing a career that I didn't actually want. I wanted it because my dad was in that field, and I had absorbed this idea that, like, this is what success looks like for people like us.
And how did you figure it out?
Honestly, therapy, which I know sounds like a cliche, but I sat down with someone who just kept asking me, okay, but what do you actually want? Not your dad, not your family, not what makes sense on paper. What do you want? And I realized I'd never actually asked myself that question seriously.
That's such a real thing. And I think the lesson here, the one we wish people learned earlier, is question the script. Not to be rebellious, not to like throw everything away and move to Bali or whatever, but just hold it up to the light. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it actually true? Is it serving me?
And here's the thing. If you don't do that work, you can spend decades climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. And that's a rough way to live.
Super rough. Okay, let me ask you this. For people listening, what's like a first step? How do you even start questioning your own scripts when you've been running them your whole life?
I think you start with the places where you feel stuck or where you feel shame, because those are usually the spots where an old script is running and it doesn't fit anymore. Like if you feel weirdly guilty every time you assert yourself at work, okay, that's data. What's the belief underneath that?
I love that. Follow the discomfort. It's usually pointing at something.
Okay, let's talk about time, which I think is the sneakiest one, because when you're young, time feels infinite, right? You're like, I'll figure that out later. I'll deal with that when I'm older. I've got time.
And the thing is, you do have time, but time is not neutral. Time is compounding. Every day, you're either adding interest to a good habit or adding debt to a bad one.
That framing is so useful. Habits as either interest or debt. Can you break that down?
Yeah, so let's say you start working out consistently at 22. You don't see dramatic results immediately, but 5 years later, you have a body that functions well, a baseline of energy, you've reduced your risk of like a dozen different health conditions. That's interest compounding.
Versus if you, I don't know, spend your 20s being sedentary, eating badly, building those patterns.
Right, that's debt. And the longer it runs, the more expensive it gets to pay off. Because now it's not just willpower. It's health issues, it's ingrained patterns, it's a harder recovery.
And the same applies to like relationships, skills, financial habits, all of it.
All of it. And I think the thing that gets me is how invisible the compounding is in the early stages. Like, day one of a good habit feels completely irrelevant. You exercise once, you're not fit. You save $50, you're not rich. And so people underestimate it and quit.
There's a quote I keep coming back to, and I don't remember who said it first, but it's something like, you overestimate what you can do in a day and underestimate what you can do in a decade.
Yes, that's exactly it. And the flip side is also true. People underestimate how quickly small bad habits accumulate into massive problems. Like one bad night of sleep isn't a crisis, but 5 years of chronically poor sleep, that's measurable cognitive decline, relationship stress, metabolic damage. It adds up.
Okay, but here's where I want to push a little bit, because I hear this and part of me goes, okay, but what if someone is in their 30s or 40s and they feel like they've already missed the window? Like, is there any hope, or is this just depressing?
Great question. And no, it's not depressing. And the window is never fully closed. because compounding doesn't stop just because you're older. It's still working for you if you start now.
The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Exactly. But also, and this is important, the sooner you start, the less work it takes. If you're 20 and you learn to manage your time and energy intentionally, you get decades of return on that investment. If you're 40 and you're just figuring this out, you'll still get returns, but you're starting with a smaller runway.
So the urgency isn't to make you feel bad, it's to help people recognize that their choices right now have a bigger impact than they feel like they do.
Perfectly put. The stakes are higher than they appear.
And I think this also connects to decision making in your 20s and 30s specifically. Like the decisions you make in those decades about your career trajectory, where you live, who you spend time with, those decisions have massive downstream consequences that you just can't fully see in the moment.
Which is why so many people in their 40s are going through these massive reinventions. Not because they're lost, but because they built a life based on what they thought they wanted at 25. And now they're going, actually?
And that reinvention is valid, but it would have been a lot easier at 25.
A lot easier. Okay, audience question that I love for this section. What's one habit you have right now that you know if you just stayed consistent with it for 5 years would completely transform an area of your life?
Ooh, that's a good one. I want to sit with that one.
All right, relationships. And I want to be upfront that this isn't just romantic relationships. We're talking about who you marry, who you date, but also who you befriend, who you spend the most time with.
Because all of it shapes you. That's the thing people underestimate. The people around you, they're not just background noise in your life. They're actively shaping your beliefs, your habits, your ceiling.
There's that Jim Rohn thing about being the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I know it's been said a million times, but have you actually sat down and thought about who your 5 are and what average that produces?
That's a confronting exercise.
Super confronting. And for a lot of people, if they're honest, a few of those 5 are people who kind of hold them in place. Not out of malice, but because that person's ceiling is lower than yours, and they normalize that ceiling.
That's such a real dynamic, and it's not about being elitist or cutting people off who are struggling. It's just about being honest with yourself about whether the people around you are lifting the tide or pulling you back.
Right, and this goes for romantic relationships especially, because your partner, if you have one, is probably the single most influential person in your day-to-day life. They affect your sleep, your stress levels, your self-perception, how ambitious you are, whether you feel safe taking risks.
And a lot of people stay in relationships way longer than they should because, well, there are 100 reasons. Fear, familiarity, sunk cost fallacy, genuine love for someone who just isn't the right match.
The sunk cost thing is so real. Like, we've been together 3 years, I can't just. And the rational mind goes, well, you've already lost those 3 years. Leaving now doesn't get them back, but it does save the next 30.
Brutal logic, but true.
And I want to say something that I think is underrated in relationship advice: compatibility of growth. Like, it's not just about who someone is today, it's about whether you're both growing in a direction that's compatible. Because people change, and sometimes what was a great match at 24 isn't a great match at 34.
And the mature version of love is being able to recognize that and make a decision that honors both people, which is really hard to do.
Really hard, but the people who do it, who have the courage to make those calls, they almost always say it was the right decision, even if it was painful.
Okay, friendships. Let's not skip this. I think people overlook how much their friendships shape their trajectory.
Huge, huge. I have a rule, and I've said this before on the pod. I try to spend time with people who make me feel energized, not drained, and people who are building something, who have curiosity and ambition, not in a grind culture way, just forward motion, you know?
And who challenge your thinking. Like the friends who just agree with everything you say, those aren't the ones helping you grow.
Right. The best friendships have friction, loving friction, where someone goes, hey, have you thought about this differently? Or I'm not sure I agree with you there. And it's not mean-spirited, it's just honest.
I want to ask the audience something here. Think about the last time a friend or a partner pushed back on a decision you were making. Genuinely push back, not just to be difficult, but because they could see something you couldn't. How did you respond? Did you get defensive or did you lean in?
Because your response to that question tells you a lot about how open you are to growth.
Money time. And honestly, I could do a whole 6-hour episode on this, but let's try to stay focused.
Me too. Okay, so what are the fundamentals? What are the things that, if you learned them at 18 instead of 32, would completely change your financial life?
Number 1, without question, save first, spend later. Not spend first, save what's left, because what's left is always nothing. Automate your savings so it happens before you touch the money.
Yes, and this sounds so basic, but the number of people, smart, well-earning people, who still haven't automated their savings is wild, because it requires this one decision up front and then just it runs.
Right, you're removing the willpower variable. Because willpower is unreliable, systems are not.
Second thing I'd add, and this one messed me up for a while, is the difference between assets and liabilities. And I know that sounds like accounting class, but just hear me out. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out.
And the trap, especially when you start earning more, is lifestyle inflation. You get a raise and suddenly you need a nicer car, a bigger apartment, better clothes, and you feel richer, but your net worth is actually the same or lower.
Because all that new stuff is liabilities. They're draining cash, not building wealth.
And the status purchase thing is real. Like, buying things to signal to other people that you're doing well is one of the most common and expensive mistakes people make. And what's wild is the people actually doing well financially are usually not the ones with the flashy cars. They're the ones you'd never guess.
The millionaire next door phenomenon. Yeah, the quiet accumulator who looks boring on the outside.
Which is so counterintuitive given what we're sold through social media and, culture generally.
Right, because we're trained to associate visible wealth with actual wealth, and that's usually backwards.
Let's talk about investing for a second, because I think the fear around this is huge. People feel like you need to be an expert or you need a financial advisor, or it's complicated and risky.
And for most people, the simple truth is index funds. Broad market, low fees, long time horizon. You don't need to pick stocks, you don't need to be clever, you just need to start, stay consistent, and don't panic when the market dips.
The hardest part about investing is doing nothing when everyone around you is panicking. Like, the financial news is designed to create anxiety and urgency. But the research is very clear. The people who do the best are the ones who just leave it alone.
There's this study, and I love this study, about which investor accounts performed the best at a certain brokerage, and the answer was people who had forgotten they had an account or who were dead.
Oh my God, that's both hilarious and deeply instructive.
Right? Like the optimal investment strategy is basically set it and forget you have it. Your brain is the enemy here.
Long-term thinking, that's really the meta skill behind all of this. The ability to make decisions that serve you in 10 years, not just right now.
Which is hard because we're literally wired for short-term rewards. The brain loves immediate gratification. Delayed gratification is a skill you have to build.
Okay, question for you and the audience. What's one financial decision you've been putting off because it feels overwhelming or complicated? And what would happen if you just did the thing?
Ooh, sitting in that discomfort right now.
Boundaries. This is the one that I think gets the most eye rolls initially. People hear the word boundaries and they either think therapy speak or they think, oh great, another reason for people to be difficult.
Yeah. Boundaries got kind of a bad reputation for a while because it was being used as a way to just avoid accountability. Oh, I have boundaries, I don't do conflict. No, that's not what it means.
What does that actually mean?
Real boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about defining what you'll accept and what you won't. And the key is, they're not walls, they're guidelines. They're how you communicate your values through your behavior.
And learning to say no genuinely, cleanly, without a 20-minute apology attached is one of the most powerful skills you can develop.
Really is. And most people are terrible at it because we're conditioned from childhood to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to be liked. And saying no feels like a threat to all of that.
I remember the first time I said no to something significant. Like no to a favor that a close friend was asking for because I genuinely didn't have the bandwidth. And I spent, I'm not exaggerating, like 3 days anxious about how they were going to take it.
And how did they take it?
Fine. They were completely fine. And I realized most of the suffering around saying no is anticipatory. It lives in your head before you actually do it.
Which is such a useful insight because a lot of people don't say no because they're imagining the worst possible reaction. And the worst possible reaction almost never happens, especially with people who genuinely care about you.
There's also this piece about not explaining yourself, which I think is the advanced level of boundary setting. Because most people, when they say no, they immediately start justifying. I can't make it because I have this thing, and also my schedule is really crazy, and I wanted to, but
Right, the word salad apology. And what that actually does is signal that you feel guilty, which invites the other person to try to work around your reason. Whereas if you just say, I can't make that work, full stop, there's nothing to negotiate with.
no is a complete sentence. I love that framing.
And the energy piece, this is something that gets overlooked. Your time and energy are finite, and every yes you give is a no to something else. So when you say yes to everything, you're saying no to your own priorities by default.
That reframe hit me hard when I first heard it. You're always saying yes to something. The question is whether you're saying yes intentionally.
Exactly. And people with weak boundaries often wonder why they feel perpetually exhausted and resentful. And the answer is usually they've been giving their yes away to everything except the things that actually matter to them.
And resentment is such a signal, isn't it? When you feel resentful of someone, it's almost never their fault. It's your own uncommunicated expectation or your own failure to set a limit.
Yes, resentment is a boundary violation you allowed, which sounds harsh, but it's also empowering because if you're the one who allowed it, you're the one who can change it.
I want to ask the audience, is there one relationship in your life right now where you know you need to set a clear limit, but you keep putting it off? What's the story you're telling yourself about why you can't do it?
That's the real work right there, because the story is always the obstacle.
All right, work. And I want to immediately say this is not a conversation about hustle culture. I'm deeply suspicious of hustle culture.
Same. It creates a lot of activity and very little progress in my experience.
Right. So, what are the actual principles worth learning early about work and career?
Skill stacking, that's my number one. And the idea comes from Scott Adams, who has complicated views on other things, but this specific idea is genuinely useful. The idea is that you don't have to be the best in the world at any one thing. You can be pretty good at a few things and combine them in a way that makes you rare.
Like, you don't need to be the best writer in the world, but if you can write well and understand data and communicate to non technical audiences, suddenly you're in a very small club.
Exactly. And that combination is much harder to replicate than any single skill in isolation. So, people who are building a stack of complementary skills are building something genuinely defensible.
I wish someone had told me this at 22, because I spent so much time trying to niche down into one area and be the best at that one thing. And that's fine, but the stack approach is often a faster and more resilient path.
Second principle, consistency beats passion. And I know this sounds like I'm about to kill everyone's dream, but hear me out. So, passion is real and it matters, but passion is also variable. There are days you feel it and days you don't. And the people who build remarkable careers are not the ones who felt passionate every single day. They're the ones who showed up on the days they didn't feel it.
Because consistency is what builds the actual skill. Passion just makes the consistent behavior easier on some days.
Right. And I think the culture around following your passion has inadvertently created this idea that if you don't feel fired up and inspired, something is wrong. But that's just not how sustained work works.
Cal Newport has this great counterpoint to the follow your passion thing. He argues that passion usually follows mastery, not the other way around. Like, you don't find a thing you love and then get good at it, you get really good at something, and the love grows out of the competent.
I really believe that. Some of the things I'm most passionate about now are things I stumbled into and then got good at. The passion came later.
Okay, leverage. This one is big. What do you mean by leverage in the context of work?
So, leverage is basically getting more output per unit of input. And there are a few kinds. Code is leverage. Software works while you sleep. Writing is leverage. A book or an article reaches thousands of people without you being there for each one. A team is leverage. Other people's time and skills multiplying your own.
And the shift from trading time for money to building leverage it's one of the most important transitions someone can make in their career. But most people never think about it explicitly.
Because in the beginning, time for money is how you start. That's fine. But at some point, whether it's building a skill that gets you to a higher hourly rate or starting something of your own or creating intellectual property, you want to start introducing leverage.
And the earlier you start thinking about this, the better. Not because you need to have it all figured out at 25, but because just having the concept in your mind starts you looking for opportunities.
Totally. It changes what you notice, which is most of what mental models actually do. They don't tell you what to do, they train your attention.
That is a great line. Writing that down.
Okay, we are coming into the home stretch here. We've covered a lot today. Identity, time, relationships, money, boundaries, work.
And honestly, it all kind of connects back to the same thing. The lessons that change your life are often learned 10 years too late, but they don't have to be.
Yeah, and that's really what this episode is. It's a shortcut. It's us looking back at what we wish we'd known and just handing it over. Take it or leave it.
Before we close out, I want to ask the big question for the day. And I want everyone listening to actually stop and sit with this one, not just let it wash over you. The question is, what lesson do you wish you had learned at 18?
Ooh, I'll go first. Mine is that your discomfort is directional. Like, the things that make you the most uncomfortable are almost always pointing at something important. Either a fear you need to face, or a boundary you need to set, or a belief you need to examine.
That's really good. Mine is that being liked and being respected are not the same thing. And for most of my teens and early 20s, I optimized for being liked. I said yes to things I didn't want to do, I avoided conflict, I made myself smaller to fit into rooms. And the irony is, I got less respect, not more, by doing that.
Yes, because people can sense when you're not being authentic. Even if they can't articulate it, there's just something a little off, a little performative, and they don't quite trust you.
And the version of you who's actually grounded in their values, who says no when they mean no, who disagrees with grace, that person gets genuine respect, even if they're not universally liked.
Which is a much better trade.
Much better trade. Okay, what's the call to action today?
So here's what I want you to do. Pick one thing from today, just one, that you know applies to your life right now. One area where you've been running an old script or avoiding a hard conversation or putting off a financial decision. And this week, take one concrete step toward it.
Not a whole overhaul, not a 5-year plan. One step. Because the compound effect is real, and one step today is worth more than 10 steps next year.
If this episode hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have a lesson you wish you'd learned earlier, drop it in the comments or tag us on Instagram. We read everything.
Seriously, we love hearing from you. Those messages mean more than you know.
Thanks so much for being here with us today. I'm Maria.
I'm Gabriel. This is the Behavior Code. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone.
And I think there's something worth saying about decision fatigue here too. Like, part of the reason people don't make good long-term decisions is because they're operating on fumes. They're tired, they're overwhelmed, and the brain defaults to what's comfortable in the moment.
Which is why intentional design of your environment matters so much. If you have to muster willpower every single day to make the right choice, you'll run out. But if you've set up your environment so the default behavior is the good behavior, You're using time in your favor without even thinking about it.
Like, I sleep better when my phone is out of the room. That's it. One structural change. But the downstream effect on my mornings, my mood, my cognitive performance, it's significant.
Small environmental tweaks with compound interest, that's the move.
One more thing on relationships I want to mention, because I think it doesn't come up enough, is the relationship you have with yourself. And I know that sounds a little self-helpy, but honestly, all the other relationship stuff flows from it.
Say more.
So, if you have poor self worth, if deep down you don't really believe you deserve good things, you'll tolerate bad relationships. You'll attract people who confirm that belief. You'll find it very hard to set limits because you don't feel entitled to them.
It's the lens. Your relationship with yourself is the lens through which you experience every other relationship.
Right. And so, a lot of the work on identity, on questioning inherited scripts, that's actually relational work. It's about building a more accurate and compassionate relationship with yourself.
And that's work that compounds too. Like, the better you understand yourself, your patterns, your triggers, what you actually value, the better every relationship you have tends to get. Because you stop projecting, you stop needing people to be something they're not.
One thing I want to add on the money front that I think is underrated is developing what I call a money story. Like, sit down and actually write out your early memories around money. What did you observe? What did adults say about it? What were the feelings associated with it?
Because your money behaviors in adulthood are almost entirely driven by that early story. And if you don't surface it, you can't change it.
I did this exercise and realized that I associated money with conflict because that's what money was in my household growing up. It was the thing people fought about. And so as an adult, I was unconsciously avoidant around financial conversations, financial decisions, anything that might create that same energy.
That's such a powerful insight, and it explains so many things. The avoidance, the anxiety, the weird guilt when things go well financially, all of it traces back to that story.
And the good news is, once you see it, you can rewrite it. You can't change the past, but you can change the meaning you give it. And you can build new associations around money that actually serve you.